The human race has many defining features that make us into unique individuals, from the color of our skin to our sexual preferences and lifestyles. But sometimes the same things that make us unique can also be the same things that either unite us or divide us. In some cases, our differences can cause intense hatred of one another simply due to one of these features. Such is the world we live in, a culmination of beauty and beasts colliding in an ever-constant war on ourselves. So why do some of us feel the need to discriminate against each other based on such things like skin color, sexuality, gender, or age? What do we think needs to happen in order for the world to finally accept one another? And what can science tell us about the cause of racism, homophobia, sexism, and ageism? In today's episode, we're going to discuss these topics, our opinions on the matter, and address key moments in time related to such matters in this introspective episode of Tipplers 2 Cents. Sticks and stones may break my bones, but words, well, words tend to hurt too. Drinkers and thinkers, and welcome back to episode 14. Thank you for tuning in once again, and thank you for tuning in for the first time if you're a first-time listener. Welcome to the Drinkers and Thinkers Club, where we drink responsibly and think responsibly. I'm your host and creator, Chris Walters, and joining me as co-host and co-creator, Sean Knox.
Hey guys, it's me, the guy with the width of his nipples being the same as the girth of his penis. How you guys doing? And that can go in any sort of way that you imagine it to be.
Yeah, that's Sean. Today we are here to discuss the difficult topics of racism and homophobia, as well as other forms of discrimination if we have the time. Now, before we dive into our topics, we must first let everyone know what we're drinking today and propose a toast to whoever we see fit. Today, I'm drinking some Tampico and gin, which is a strange combination, but I'm hoping it'll work out. Sean, what about you, brother?
This is going to piss you off so bad.
Oh, boy. Here we go.
I'm drinking Suntory. I'm drinking Suntory whiskey only because I don't really have that much right now. If you're new to the show, I went a lot of episodes basically just drinking this, so that's probably why a lot of people are like, Jesus fucking Christ again. But guess what? I like this fucking whiskey and I still have some left, so I'm gonna drink it.
That's all right. My go-to gin is Tanqueray, and that's what I'm drinking again, so it's whatever. Yeah. But also thank you guys for understanding our new way of doing things, going about this with the an episode every 2 weeks instead of 1 week. I know that's kind of a different thing to adapt to, and actually a little bit harder for me to adapt to as well, because I kept having like this anxiety of like not having an episode going up on that last Monday, and I was like, oh fuck, it feels so weird. But I don't know, hopefully this will work out better for everybody. I know I feel a lot less stressed about doing this. Hopefully it works out for Sean too, and like I said, you guys.
Well, actually, the cool thing is, thanks to you guys, our views never dropped to zero, like great. Ever. So I am so fucking happy about that. Actually, on Monday we got the same amount of viewers, and I feel very apologetic for that, just because
probably people tuning in thinking there was another episode.
But for anybody who is caught up, they know what happened. So thank you, every single one of you who is a new listener that caught up to us, and even probably took the time to listen to some episodes maybe you didn't listen to before. Either way, we really appreciate it, and it's awesome that we never dropped down to 0 listeners, because we don't have a lot to begin with, so we appreciate every single one of you.
Yeah, thank you guys so much. But, okay, let's go ahead and move on to today's toast. Today's toast is a little bit like an ogre, or an onion. It has layers. We got multiple things I want to toast to. The first of which is to you, Sean. By the time you guys listen to this episode, or the time this episode airs, it'll be Sean's birthday, so happy birthday, Sean.
Yeah, thanks, man.
Yeah, I hope it's a good one, and that God or whatever you believe in brings you happiness, wealth, and prosperity. Um,
I
how
mean,
how
I
old are you
appreciate
turning,
it.
by the way? I don't remember.
Fucking great brother you are, bro. No, I'm turning 23.
23. I thought so. I
Um,
couldn't remember because like you're the same age as Crystal. So.
yeah, I still can't rent a fucking car, so that's great.
Oh yeah, it's
But
25.
outside of that, yeah, that's fucking 25. I don't have, dude, that's the thing. Like, I wanted nothing on this birthday. I really just wanted to be like, everyone leave me alone. If you want to give me something, just give me money.
Yeah.
But apparently I'm having a party tomorrow or something, Saturday, because today is Friday. And yeah, I mean, if you guys can figure out the address, you can always come too.
Show
But
up, pull
it'll
up.
be in the past. It'll be in the past, and you'll probably need a time machine. But yeah, fucking pull up.
Just go listen to our time machine or our time travel episode, and you guys will figure it out.
Yeah, exactly.
Anyway, the next part of this toast, I would like to toast to myself. I just recently got my new car, which, I mean, if you've been listening to the previous episode, you know how long I've been trying to get this damn car. But I also got a new job, so yay me. Got a new job at a bank, so hopefully that's a step in the right direction as opposed to just doing random warehouse work. Yeah, but we'll see how it goes. I'll, of course, let everybody know how it's going once I get there.
What kind of car did you get?
A Nissan Rogue 2014. It's like an SUV.
Oh, I didn't know it was a SUV. That's fucking dope.
Yeah, it's like,
I mean, that's
I'm
always,
actually
that's always
pretty
good
excited
since
about
you.
it, getting an SUV. So
Yeah, that's always good to have with a family and all, because fucking nothing against your car, but like I have the same difficulty keeping my car clean and shit just with the kid, and
yeah,
like it doesn't even matter because like I'm very clean about my car, but like after a while you're just like fuck it, I don't care.
yeah, that's how I am with the current one or the old one. So I'm gonna try to take care of this one.
And to add on to the toast, I actually got a raise. If you heard
Yeah.
from our last episode, I think either our last episode or the episode before that, I got robbed, and apparently that served as pretty good leverage to get a raise. So I am again making the most money I've ever made. So fucking yay me.
Yeah, congrats. But okay, last but not least, a toast to anyone who has faced real life experiences of discrimination due to racism, homophobia, sexism, ageism, etc. We're very sorry that any of you have had to endure that, but cheers to you for making it through. So, with all that said, cheers to everybody. Oh, I made that really strong.
Man, this whiskey just gets fucking better. I swear to God.
All right, guys. Without further ado, let's get started. Topic number 1 is going to be racism. So, what is racism? Well, everybody should have a good idea of what racism is, but in case you're new to this planet or just, that naive, racism is basically the discrimination against another person for the color of their skin or just like country of origin, anything like that. So, say you're a white person, you say, I hate black people. Racism. There you go. But newly discovered stuff, and I shouldn't even say newly, but it's a more it's a term that I've heard more recently than I've ever heard it. And systemic racism. Basically, I want to talk about that because I think, given our current climate, cultural climate, it's very relevant. So, Sean, would you give us a brief definition of what systemic racism is?
Yeah, well, systemic racism or institutional racism, as it is otherwise called, is a form of racism that is embedded as normal practice within society or an organization, and it can lead to such issues as discrimination in criminal justice, employment, fucking housing, healthcare, political power, education, and a bunch of other issues. It's basically, think about housing developments, right? So if you think of the projects, you usually think of the ghetto. And, like stereotypically, a lot of black people inhabit the ghetto. Mm-hmm. Well, back in the day, project housing was actually a form of just workers' housing. And essentially, what happened was a bunch of workers, both white and black, went to these housings and were working on projects for certain corporations, or I think specifically it was during World War II where they were doing a lot of factory jobs.
Yeah.
Well, whenever the war was over, whenever that factory shut down, the project stayed open, but they basically moved to the white people to different project housing in a form of segregation, and those projects became the suburbs. So if you see like really big like suburban like lanes and lanes of like really nice houses, that's where they moved white people to for a long time. And if you actually look in the contracts specifically state, and I mean it doesn't hold up anymore obviously, but they do specifically state that no black people shall inhabit these homes.
Yeah.
That is a form of systemic racism that still extends to this day. Black people stay in those projects, white people got the nice new houses. That is systemic racism.
Yeah, and the current problem is that a lot of people don't think that it's still alive today, but it very much so is. Maybe not in such like terms that you put it, like you said, you know, that those contracts don't hold up today. Obviously, we don't have completely white dominated neighborhoods, at least on paper.
Yeah,
there is still
it's
predominantly
more like
white neighborhoods, no doubt, but
yeah. Well, I'm just in that example, I was more just pointing out that with those separate neighborhoods in generations to come, like those children, you know, black people's children in those projects, if you're growing up in that specific environment, you're probably going to stay in that environment. And same with like wealthier families, they try to stay in that environment.
Mm-hmm.
And it's not like they do it on purpose, but if you have no other choice but to stay in that environment, it's just going to, you're just going to keep your race and, well, you know, inadvertently keep your race in that area. And it's horseshit, and you know, but it did extend until even today. But like, you know, like I said before, it, you know, if you're lucky enough to get out of the projects, you know, get a job outward and work, you know, upward, climb the greasy rungs of capitalism, then you know you can get out of it. But it's just the fact that, you know, a lot of generations never did.
Yeah. But the way it's still alive today, and it probably everybody should know this topic, the police brutality thing, which we'll get into and dissect a little bit more later on. But that itself is a form of systemic racism, because, you know, people of color are being targeted more than anybody else. And I mean, you can argue that all day, but that's fact, actually. You know, there's like a high percentage more of black people dying than any other race due to police brutality. So, you know, when everybody's up in arms about this stuff, that's why, guys. It's not just because one guy, you know, died and it was caught on footage. It's just statistics, you know. But like I said, we'll get into that a little bit later as far as I think, you know, what we're all referring to as far as police brutality. But anyway, I want to go into a little bit about like what causes a person to be a racist. So I know initially somebody's probably thinking like it has to do with their upbringing. And that is a good argument, because I mean, you know, like what better way to think that somebody would be that way other than their upbringing? A lot of stuff that we go through in our lives is due to the way that we're raised. Like, you know, a lot of people get into religion because their parents are religious and they grew up that way. They grew up Christian, so they become a Christian in their adult life. But, you know, that can also be argued because a lot of times with stuff like that, more specifically with the religion thing, it tends to go the opposite way. Like, I know I rebelled a little bit against my Christian upbringing when I was in my high school years. I was like, fuck that, I don't want to be a Christian. And like my Christian upbringing specifically made me rebel against being a Christian in my teen years. So
yeah,
it's like, yeah, you can make that argument that it's upbringing, but also it could totally not have anything to do with that. And I actually found this statement in a Washington Post article, and I'll read it to you here. It says, "In some ways, it's super simple. People learn to be whatever their society and culture teaches them. We often assume that it takes parents actively teaching their kids for them to be racist. The truth is that unless parents actively teach kids not to be racist, they will be. And this was said by Jennifer Richardson, a Yale University social psychologist. This is not the product of some deep-seated evil heart that is cultivated. It comes from the environment and the air all around us. So what she's saying is, this is just the world we live in, honestly. That even without parents teaching them to be a racist, a person can still grow up to be a racist. It kind of boils down to you and the people around you and just everything. It has to do with everything. It's not just, the parents teaching them to be a racist. And it's kind of going back to like what I was saying. Like, even though I was brought up Christian, it didn't necessarily make me a Christian later on.
Yeah. Well, with that in mind, the one thing I always think about, I'm kind of skipping over one of our talking points just for a second here, but I think one of the biggest things that comes down to it is like stereotypes. Like if you watch like especially in the 90s and like movies that me and Chris grew up with, just black people like in general or Mexicans and stuff like that, they are usually portrayed in movies as being like gangbangers and gangsters and shit like that. And so it makes, little white kids generally think that, oh, if I see a black person, they must be a gang member or some bullshit like that. And I know this was, I want to say inadvertent, but it kind of isn't. I mean, who the fuck, I don't know. It's just one of those weird things that, like, during the time, it wasn't that odd, but now looking back on it, it is kind of upsetting just to be like, wow, so really just every white person was just a good person, that was it? And, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
And, other stereotypes, just like in general, like, just, passing shit, fucking black people love fried chicken, Asian women can't drive, Mexicans are generally illegal, white people can't dance, which that one's true. I don't give a fuck. I can't dance for shit. But yeah, like, all of those things ultimately boil down to generally identifying a specific race. Mm-hmm. And that's almost never fucking true. I mean, most of my black friends that I grew up with, they are more white than I am. If I, you know what I mean? Like, I'm the one that ended up turning into a fucking, dumb shit fucking drug addict. And my friend Malik, for example, I mean, he's doing fucking great. You know what I mean? And it's just one of those stupid things that are just, like, drilled into your head as a kid. And especially, like, if you have, friends and family members that just say the N-word and say, racial slurs and shit all the time. They may be joking about it. That's maybe fine in that group, but, like, it teaches people at a young age, like, oh, so yeah, I can just fucking say this word in general, and these kids learn what that word means, and they still don't give a shit, because it's just a funny word to say.
Yeah.
They don't understand, like, the brutal fucking nature of that word.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And stereotypes is something I want to get into pretty deep, just because stereotyping is a complicated thing, because, and this might be controversial to say, but some stereotyping is there for a reason, because, sometimes, not always, but sometimes it's true. And like you were saying, white people can't dance. Most of the white people I know can't dance.
Yeah.
But, I mean, it's the same that can be said, like, black people love fried chicken. Well, I mean, fucking most people like fried chicken. I don't know, like, a lot of people that are like, I fucking hate fried chicken, and they're, fucking, they could be Mexican and be like, I love fried chicken. Does that mean all Mexicans love fried chicken? No. But,
and, like, Asian women can't drive. That's not true. Fucking most women can't drive. No,
we're just kidding.
That, for legal reasons, that is a joke. No, that's obviously a joke.
No,
but yeah, like most of these things are just vague. Yeah, like you were saying, most of these things are just vague, and then they just add the prefix to it. So, like, people, like, just literally just cut out black people, cut out the black people love fried chicken. Fucking, I think the only true one is that white people can't dance. Like, honestly, I cannot fucking dance. If you try hard enough, there's a video of me on YouTube dancing, and I fucking pray to God that you don't find it.
No, but I mean, like, even then, there's tons of famous white dancers, there's tons of dancers from all cultures. I mean, John Travolta is like one that comes to mind when people bring up like
Yeah.
white people that can dance. Like John Travolta is a good example. I mean, I'm sure there's plenty others, but that's just one that comes to mind. It's like, it's not always true, and that's the bad thing about stereotypes is there's people out there who take those stereotypes and just automatically assume this is 100% all the time a thing. And it's like, no. Like, I know a common one amongst more racist people is like black people steal all the time. Well, that's not 100% true. I've only known 2 black people very closely in my life, and neither one of them, I can't even imagine them ever stealing anything. They were like the nicest people I knew. Anthony and Major, like they were both fantastic people. Like I can't imagine them stealing anything. So it's not always
they're
true.
fucking awesome.
Yeah.
Like Malik, like whenever I was younger, I would, if you guys didn't, I mean, it doesn't matter. You guys, by now, if you don't know, I was like a piece of shit kid, then, that's basically the joke, but it's true. Whenever I was like 12 or 13, I was smoking a cigarette, and he was standing like 20 feet away from me, and every time I walked closer to him, he would be like, dude, I don't want to be around that. I don't want to smoke. I'm like, really? What the fuck? But yeah, it was just one of those things where I'm like, fucking just shut up. Like, most of these people are not bad people. It's just, that's it. They're just fucking people.
Yeah. So it's like, apply the stereotype with caution, like, and it comes down to like basic human behavior too. If you see a sketchy dude coming down the street and he's black, he's a sketchy black dude. Great. Okay. That's it. You can see a sketchy white dude coming down the street. Doesn't mean anything different than the sketchy black dude. It's like they're the same person. You have to deal with them as individuals, not the stereotype they're based off of. Because I see a lot of people do that too, where it's like, and I'm actually guilty of this too. But like I'll see somebody dressed up like a a gangbanger looking type, and I automatically assume like, oh, okay, this isn't a good person. And I mean, I made that mistake with this last job that I just left. One of my coworkers, whose name I won't mention, but one of my coworkers was dressed kind of like, not really like gangbanger, but just kind of thuggish. And upon meeting him for the first time, I was like, oh, this guy's going to be a douchebag. And I hate to say it, but I was dead wrong. He's super nice, super polite all the time. Like, nicer than me. Like, just never said an ill word about anybody. Like, even the times, we were kind of, like, ragging on some other co-workers about their work ethic and stuff. Hardly ever said a cross word about anybody. And, yeah, I judged him, I judged a book by its cover. So it's just, that's the stuff we're talking about. It's like, you can draw stereotypes about people all day long, but more often than not, you're probably going to be wrong.
Yeah. So the talking point that I skipped over was about slavery and segregation, and how has this affected modern day racism? So, what do you think about? I mean, obviously slavery and segregation both were terrible fucking things, but what's your train of thought on how it's affected the modern day?
Yeah, see, this one, it's hard to say, and it's hard to talk about from a white person's perspective, because we don't. That's the thing, is we're talking from a perspective without experience. So,
well, and also our generation, like, we didn't experience a lot of. I mean, we have, but I mean, like, we haven't experienced like the brutality and shit that happened like in the '60s and even further back than that. So just keep that in mind. We're coming from a good place.
Yeah. And, we might say some things in ignorance, too, that, just, like I said, it comes from a place without experience. So if it's said in ignorance, you got to just pardon my ignorance. But, I mean, as far as I see it, the way that it goes with slavery and segregation applying to anything to do with racism today, I find it a stretch to apply it to stuff today. And I feel like that's part of the problem that draws the divide between a lot of black people and a lot of white people. And I mean that in as far as a lot of black people being racist towards white people. And I know a lot of people don't like to acknowledge that, but there are a lot of black people that are racist towards white people. And that's something that I've experienced in my life. That, like, a lot of black people just automatically not want to be friends with you, not want to talk to you because you're white, and because they think that you're an asshole. And it's like, they're doing the same thing that white people do to black people when they stereotype them. But I think this comes from that history of slavery and segregation, because that's automatically what the mind goes back to when you think of, white people. It's like that gets beat into white people's heads. The slavery and segregation thing is throughout most of our school years. We're spent learning about all of this stuff and all that shit that happened back then. It kind of puts this negative perspective on each other, I think. I don't think it does so much for white people as it puts a negative perspective on black people, but it definitely puts a negative perspective towards white people for black people, you know what I'm saying?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, so, I mean, I think that's the only part of it that still applies, is that it kind of puts that negative perspective on white people from a black person's perspective. But other than that, I think, there's not much that it has to do with today's racism, other than maybe the fucking stupid people, the stupid white people, I should say, that follow the Confederate flag shit.
Yeah. I'm gonna disagree only slightly because I mean, it's a stretch to apply that specifically to like a modern scenario, but there would be no modern scenario if it wasn't for slavery and segregation.
I mean,
you know what I mean?
Yeah,
So,
kind of, but I still think we.
I mean,
I
I
still think
understand.
we'd be here today, even if that all that shit hadn't happened in the past.
No, trust me. I know how the human race operates, and we're gonna fuck ourselves either way. But it's just the fact that, like, if this never happened, then maybe, just maybe, there wouldn't be any racial issues.
Yeah.
And ultimately, I do agree with the point that you were saying. How, if you try to like say some shit like if a black guy called me a cracker, for example. That term, like, it doesn't bother me. You can call me whatever the fuck you want. You can call me anything. I just don't give a shit. I don't get insulted that easily. But outside of that, like, if I were to, have a third person perspective on it, it's one of those things like that's insinuating that, I was a whip cracker, which is, the, slave owner kind of shit, or just, an asshole white guy. It is one of those things that, like, it's kind of quick to assume that my ancestors had anything to do with that. And, they may have or they may have not, but from what I know, my ancestors were Scottish. And, they like my ancestors were fucking oppressed by the English and shit like that. So it's like, I have nothing to fucking do with your guys' culture, man. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
But baseline, I'm blonde-haired, blue-eyed, and white. So people generally see me as, the small amount of German that I am. And they're just like, oh, fucking Nazi, fucking skinhead, blah, blah, blah. And that, I actually have been called that before. So it's just one of those things where I'm like, dude, I have nothing to fucking do with that. I don't have a problem with you assuming that. But it's one of those things that it wouldn't have happened if not for slavery and segregation happening in the first place. And it's not that I excuse racism on either side of the spectrum, but it's just one of those things that, like, it's so fucking difficult to talk about.
Mm-hmm.
Not even as a white person. It's just like, because, I guarantee you I haven't dealt with as much bullshit as, a black person or a Mexican person has, or fucking native people for a greater example. But no matter what, all this bad blood wouldn't have happened if not for past experiences. But unfortunately, it's going to come to a point where those experience or the history isn't irrelevant. It's good to know the history so we don't repeat it, but it's just repeating because we're remembering the shit in that way.
Yeah.
Because that's all history is. We're supposed to remember it, so we're like, okay, we're not going to enslave people anymore. We're not going to fucking mass genocide people anymore. You know what I mean? But people just take the bad shit out of it and they're like, what? They mass genocided my culture? I'm like,
yeah.
Well, yeah, like, that's how fucking America happened. That's how most countries happen.
Yeah.
People come in with their fucking swords and their weapons, and they fuck you up, and then that's their land now. That's how all of history has happened. But it's just our country in particular that it's still fucking extending to this day.
Mm-hmm.
And don't get me wrong, I get it, but it's just really odd to see history repeating itself so frequently in America, whereas in other countries it doesn't seem to happen as often.
Yeah. Yeah, and I don't mean to take away from what African Americans and all that stuff went through as far as slavery, but slavery is not unique to just black people. You know, there's been slaves from every single race that you can name. I mean, probably literally every single one, but I mean, Chinese people were another huge race that got enslaved. And, you know, that's not talked about enough either on their side. And I mean, that kind of might be a good thing because, you know, you don't see as much of a racial divide between white people and Chinese people. I mean, maybe a little bit, but that just might be the cultural differences as opposed to skin color and, you know, the racial inequalities and stuff of our past. But, yeah, I think us holding on to all this stuff in our past, all this racial segregation, all the slavery stuff, and like I said, this might be ignorant to say, but I think we just need to move past it because I think it's just holding us down, both of us, both sides. It's holding down black people because, you know, like I was saying, it kind of makes them feel more, you know, aggressive and angry at us, and it makes us feel bad for what we did, and so we just have two sides that are clashing on these, like, you know, opposing sides, and it's a never-ending thing if we just keep bringing it back up.
Yeah. However, I will say that in today's climate, and like how we were mentioning before with systemic racism and all that shit, there are steps that we can take to prevent this kind of shit. Like with police brutality, an example, like with qualified immunity, I think that's what it's called. So, like, we're fully aware that it's not gone, and we're not just trying to say, like, oh, fucking, yeah, just drop it. Because, you know, obviously we don't want to drop, we don't want you to drop it. We still want
everybody to know what happened, but just, yeah.
But we're just saying it's going to have to get to a point where we're going to have to drop it. Because, like, imagine in 2050 if this shit's still happening. After a while, everyone's going to be like, Jesus fucking Christ, really? It's still fucking going on? You know what I mean?
Yeah.
I feel like we're at that...
All I'm saying is don't use it as a vehicle to push your hatred. If you're using it to push your hatred towards black people, you're a piece of shit. If you're using it to push your hatred towards white people, you're a piece of shit. Don't use it as anything. All it needs to be is a lesson, not a cause. It doesn't need to be anything other than that. Nobody alive today, at least that I know of, nobody alive today was in the slave times. So let's drop it, you know? It's not helping anybody. Let's keep everybody learning about it. Yes, everybody needs to know about this so that way we can avoid it happening again, but we don't need to be using it to hate each other.
Yeah, exactly. It's all about equality across the fucking board.
Yeah, because if we keep seeing each other as two different sides, then that's all we're ever going to be. We're going to be two different sides.
Yeah, because keep in mind, like, yes, if you want to think that, or not even think, if you know that white people have been, you know, fucking your class or your race for forever, that sucks. But most white people alive today have not, well, a lot of white people alive today have not experienced that. Like, I mean, we're talking as 20-year-olds, so to be fair, like, I've never fucking felt like I was above another race or another class, like, at all.
Yeah.
And I know there are a lot of, like, white rich people that may have fucking experienced that. They're just like, oh, well, I'm better than you. But honestly, I think that comes down to more classism than racism. And I know there are racist politicians and racist, rich people and shit. Like, I'm not ignorant to that fact. But it's just one of those things that we just kind of have to wait it out. We have to wait for these people to just fucking die, like, honestly. Because from what it seems like, our generation, the generation closely behind us, we are not fucking going for this shit. So
yeah, I do feel like we're getting better.
Yeah, another 10 to 20 years, guys. Fucking just hold on in there. Let's try to get qualified immunity taken off. Let's fucking try to get all those little nitpicking bits of systemic racism left in our system. Get that the fuck out, and we're gonna be good. So I want to be 40 years old and not hear the N-word or fucking, any other racial slur ever again.
Yeah. But yeah, going back onto the topic of police brutality, kickstart that topic off a little bit. Of course, have to reference probably one of the most popular ones before the most current one, and that's Rodney King. I actually wasn't alive during the time that this happened. Obviously, you weren't either. But I have heard about it. I don't know enough about it to really discuss it in detail, but I do want to at least mention it so that way people know, I do know about it. You know about it. We're bringing it up.
Yeah.
So Rodney King was an American man who was a victim of police brutality by the Los Angeles Police Department. This attack occurred on March 3rd of 1991. King was beaten by LAPD officers after a high-speed chase during his arrest for drunk driving on the I-210. So yeah, it basically another case of like we're gonna talk about George Floyd, so that's what I keep referencing. This is basically the original. This guy got beat. Luckily, he didn't die, not like George Floyd, but he did get beat pretty severely. There was another guy who happened to capture it all on footage. I believe it was footage. A man named George Holliday, and this stuff went viral after he leaked it to a news station, and people fucking went up in arms, as well they should have, because the video basically showed that Rodney King was unarmed, laying on the ground, basically just cowering while these guys just laid into him. And it was 4 officers, and I believe 3 of them were white. I don't remember what the 4th guy was, but I know 3 of them were white. And they were just basically sitting there just striking him with batons, like just endlessly.
The Los Angeles Police Chief Daryl Gates said, quote, "We believe the officers used excessive force taking him into custody. In our review, we found the officers struck him with batons between 53 and 56 times.
Yeah.
That's fucking ridiculous.
Yeah, talk about excessive. So after this, I think they ended up rioting in downtown Los Angeles, like, I don't even remember when it was or whatever, but it was following this. People started rioting. It lasted at least like 6 days. 63 people were killed in these riots, with more than 2,383 were injured. And it only ended after the California Army National Guard showed up and basically put a halt to everything. So, pretty prevalent to what's going on now. Which, like I said, of course, we're going to have to talk about. And that's George Floyd. Everybody should know the George Floyd story, but just to give everybody, get everybody on the same page. George Floyd Jr., born October 14th, 1973, and his life was ended on May 25th, 2020, was an African-American man killed during an arrest after a store clerk alleged that he had passed a counterfeit $20 bill in Minneapolis. A white police officer named Derek Chauvin knelt on Floyd's neck for a period initially reported to be 8 minutes and 46 seconds. Knelt on his neck for 8 minutes and 46 seconds over a counterfeit $20 bill. Now, I don't give a fuck what you say about this man. You can sit there and go back through his criminal history. Nobody deserves to be choked in the street for almost 9 minutes, especially over a $20 counterfeit bill. So I know I've seen so many people going, this guy was a criminal and blah, blah, blah. He was choked for 9 minutes over a $20 fucking bill. Like, I don't even care if it was counterfeit or not. It's fucking bullshit.
And also, his criminal charges were back in like 2009, I think. Like, okay. Like Chris said, if you were if you were an active criminal, if you were resisting arrest, that's one thing. Either way, a cop should not fucking default to killing you. Ever.
Yeah.
Fucking ever. Ever. If a fucking cop defaults to killing you, guess what? That cop needs to fucking die too. I don't give a shit. Alright? I'm sorry. This is the most ridiculous fucking thing that has happened this year.
Yeah.
And this year has been fucking bonkers, okay?
Yeah.
So, okay, with this, with his criminal charges, it was, I think it was a breaking and entering, and he assaulted a pregnant woman. And like I said, I might have the year wrong. It was either like between like 2009, 2012, something like that. And we have multiple accounts that were saying he's not in that game anymore, and he's actually serving to he basically like dedicated his life to starting to get to the point where he's like, yeah, he used to be a gangster, but now he's trying to show people that, like, he's not that anymore, and he's trying to show people, like, how much better the other side was.
Yeah.
But because of this piece of fucking trash named Derek Chauvin, he got choked out for 8 fucking minutes and 46 seconds until he suffocated to death.
Yeah. And I mean, it's pretty horrifying too if you've seen any of the videos. He's like calling out for his mom the whole time.
Yeah.
It's devastating, man. Like, it really put a hole in my heart when I was watching that stuff. And just, I mean, the whole time, like, it was coming out, it just made me angry that a person could even do that. Like, I don't even care what color or what situation. Like, I don't think I could ever choke somebody for almost 9 minutes unless they, did something to hurt a family member or something like that. Something really drastic. I would have to be seeing red to be able to choke somebody for 9 minutes. And I mean, you watch this video that Derek Chauvin is doing it so damn casually. It's almost like he didn't give a shit. Like, he just didn't care. This was his everyday thing. Didn't even acknowledge George Floyd as a person. It's just an object in this point.
Mm-hmm.
And it's degrading. It's disgusting. And consequently, his wife divorced him, like, following all of this, which I was like, good for her.
Good, fuck him.
Yeah. She divorced him. I think he's convicted now. I know he got locked up. I don't know if he got convicted or anything, but I think he is. I just don't have the details in front of me.
Yeah, it's him and like 3 other people were charged or some shit.
Yeah, because there were 2 other officers, but they weren't involved in him dying. They just failed to act to save the man's life, basically. So, I mean, they are at fault. There are a lot of people who are like, they need to fucking die too. I don't know, because one of them I know was a rookie, and this Derek Chauvin, was his superior. So it's like he got kind of put into this tough situation because I think it was only like day 4 for him or something like that. He was very early on. And basically what it would take for him is to have to basically tell his superior to get the fuck off the guy. Because, I mean, what else are you going to do in that situation? You'd have to either force him off or something else, because he did speak up and say, like, hey, I think you should let him up or whatever, or let him onto his stomach like he was asking or whatever, and Derek Chauvin didn't listen. So, I mean, that, at least for that officer, he was put in a very tough situation. I do sympathize with that guy. He should have done more, yeah, but it's easy to say that stuff in retrospect, Hindsight's 20/20. It's easy to say, like, oh, I would have done this different. I would have done this. Well, yeah, you're not in that situation. So you can't say for certain what you would have done.
Yeah. That, like how you were saying, it's so many people were saying, like, oh, I would have fucking tackled him, blah, blah. Guess what? Unfortunately, most people don't default to thinking that way.
Yeah.
I'm just gonna lay it out for you. I don't know about me. It really depends on how you feel in that situation. But 9 times out of 10, a person's not gonna fucking do anything. And the good thing about most people today is that they default to starting just recording. But guess what? Recording isn't doing anything.
Yeah,
I mean, it does do something.
You're helping in retrospect, basically.
Yeah, and I mean, it exposes whatever the fuck happened. That's true, but that's not directly helping. If someone was getting arrested, like there's a video I saw pretty recently. It was a black guy that was at a Walmart, and he bought a bike, and he was riding it inside the store.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know if you saw this one, but he was riding it inside the store just to test it out, and I guess he was buying it for his son. And he had the receipt on him, and I guess because he was riding it in the store, they called the cops on him or some shit, and the cop showed up, and they were like talking to him, and he's like, oh, I have the fucking receipt, I bought it. And they just weren't fucking listening to him, so they took him outside, and they weren't beating him or anything like that. Luckily, it didn't escalate to that. But it got to the point where, like 3 to 4 people were recording, but not a single fucking person out of this group of like 20 people that was surrounding the police officer's car actually actively did anything.
Yeah.
And maybe just because it was in that situation that it was, it wasn't directly like what's the word I'm trying to, like, it wasn't getting violent. That's maybe why they didn't do anything. But the same thing can be said with George Floyd too. There was a fucking group around what happened with George Floyd, and
Yeah.
nobody did a single fucking thing.
Yeah, this happened
And
in
I
a
mean, I
crowded
get it.
street, so it's not like there weren't, there was nobody around. There were people around. There was tons of people recording and stuff like that too.
Yeah, and I get it. You don't want to get fucking shot, but you're like, I know people aren't going to do anything about it. At least in those situations. The only time it has ever fucking really worked is in like mass quantities, like with riots and shit like that. Because at event like with riots, cops generally just kind of just try to smokescreen you, scatter you, and then if you happen to what's the word? Like group up and actually like get those numbers and like ignore the smoke, ignore the fucking spray and shit like that, cops will move back.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, that happened with like the Hong Kong protests, which magically fucking disappeared conveniently.
Yeah.
Fuck those Hong Kong protests. Those motherfuckers, bro, they know how to disperse a fucking crowd of cops. I don't give a fuck. That was probably the most impressive display of rebellion I've ever seen in a long time. But yeah, ultimately, I'm just saying, like, most examples of, like, oh, you need to do something if that happens. Like, yeah, recording is doing something, but you're probably not gonna fucking run towards someone and potentially get tased or shot or fucking maced. You know what I mean?
Yeah. And okay, and see, here's one of my biggest points about police brutality in general. So,
Okay.
Imagine you're getting pulled over. What's the first feeling that you feel? Imagine you're just driving. You don't know that you're doing anything wrong. Imagine the first thing you see is those lights flicker in your rearview mirror. What's the first feeling?
Irritation and anxiety, usually.
Yeah, anxiety due to nervousness, due to fear, correct?
Yeah.
Because you're scared. And you don't necessarily have any reason to be scared, but you're scared. And this is coming from a white person with, not a whole lot of history with cops, but you do have a little bit of history. And it's the same for me. I don't have that much of a history with cops. I've had a few run-ins with them, but nothing like to provoke this sense of fear whenever I see police lights in my rearview mirror. But that's the initial reaction I get is fear. And like I said, I'm a white person. So imagine you're a black person and you already know you're discriminated against by these people. So it's like you put yourself in that situation. This is exactly why we need to correct the whole police thing. I didn't expect to be going too much into the police brutality part of this, but it's got to be said, they have to change. And it's not just for black people. Honestly, it's for everybody. There's no reason that we should be scared of police, but almost everybody is. Like, I mean, there's memes about it I see that go across my Facebook feed. And it's like, the anxiety you get when you look in the rearview mirror and you see the lights flicker on. It's not always just scared because, you don't want to get a ticket. You're just scared of police. And it's like everybody's scared of police. And especially now, like the climate that we're in, everybody's fucking terrified of police because you think you're going to get shot. And that shouldn't be a thing. We should not be scared to be being shot by these people. They need to learn gun discipline, honestly. Like, they need to learn when to draw your weapon, when to fire your weapon, when not to. More importantly, when not to, because most of the situations require you not to draw your weapon. They have tasers. Almost every single every single police officer that has a gun has a taser. They have pepper spray. They have batons. They have all these other weapons that they could be using to protect themselves and to subdue like a crazy, out of control person that they need to subdue. It's like they have all these tools and all these other things that they could be using, and they don't use them. The first reaction is to go for your pistol. You're just a bad cop. And I hope that a cop is listening to this and getting pissed off, because if you're getting pissed off, then you're one of the problem cops. You're one of the ones that resorts to grabbing your pistol first and asking questions later, or trying to solve it through another means. It's like, use your taser, use your baton, use your pepper spray. If you're that scared in a situation that you have to draw your pistol, call for backup, get out of there, get out of the situation. Just don't end a life so quickly because you're scared.
Yeah. I mean, our justice system is dependent on the fact that it's justice. You have to fucking actually bring them in. And I get there are situations where, unfortunately, we do have to kill certain criminals and stuff like that if it's putting a group of cops in danger.
Yeah.
And I'm not gonna shit on you too much because I wouldn't fucking be a cop. Fuck that, dude. I wouldn't put myself in that situation where I can maybe get killed any fucking day. Like, I get it, but I don't want to fucking kill anybody either. You know what I mean? Like, who in their right fucking mind defaults to being in a position where you say you protect and serve, but you default to fucking just killing someone if they are coming at you with a knife or something. You have, like Chris was saying, you have plenty of fucking ways to subdue your fucking, your suspect or whatever the fuck. I don't know the terminology that well, but it's unfortunate, and I'm not saying I don't get it, because I do, but fucking please don't kill more fucking people. America, like the US in general, kills so many fucking people by police. Like, death by police is the highest. Yeah. I'm pretty sure we're like pretty fucking high.
Yeah.
And I mean,
in
and
the
that,
US at least, yeah.
And that's like a group, not a group, more like civilized societies and stuff. And I'm not trying to say like third world countries are less civilized or shit like that. But like with certain ones where the police force isn't really super official, or there's like more of a corrupted government and stuff like that, you can't really expect them to, they kind of they're more like a guerrilla fucking warfare or shit like that. Like us, we're a pretty stable fucking country, or we front like we are, and we're not. If our police force defaults to killing people all the time, and I don't know, it bugs the shit out of me. And I honestly, I never even thought about that before, how Chris was putting it, where it all anxiety and shit like that roots from fear, and it's just that general fear of getting pulled over when that shouldn't fucking be a thing at all.
Yeah, we should not be scared to be pulled over. If anything, we should be glad if they're pulling us over. We should be like, oh, they're here to help, because that's what police are supposed to be there for. They're supposed to be here to help. But
yeah, very few times has like fucking, like, okay, just a quick example. Like, I got pulled over in my hometown not that long ago, the last time I visited, and it was because my brake lights were out, right? So if I was a cop and someone's brake lights were out, they were obeying the laws of traffic, all that shit. A dude came up to me and he was like, do you know why I pulled you over? Right then, I don't care. You should just walk up to the window and be like, hey man, I just wanted to let you know your light's burnt out. Did you know that already? And if they knew that already, then issue a ticket. If they didn't, then don't issue a fucking ticket. Yeah. Don't immediately. That's just one of those like small little power trip things that maybe were like embedded in subconscious just because like of movies and stuff like that. But I'm sorry, but if you walk up to a fucking car and you're a cop and you say, do you know why I pulled you over? That's the most dumb fucking thing to ask. You already know why you pulled them over. Why don't you just fucking tell them?
Yeah, it's a bait question to admit fault. And that's inherently a problem. That's a problem question. It should not be asked. You should not be trying to get somebody to admit fault.
Yeah, and I didn't know, or no, it wasn't my brake lights. It was like, I think I was driving without my lights on or something like that. So he could have just pulled me over and be like, hey bro, your lights are off. And I'd be like, oh fuck, thank you so much. That would have been help, not fucking trying, like how Chris said, getting me to admit fault. But yeah, it's just one of those things that you need to acknowledge, and as a cop, if you're a cop, you need to acknowledge your wording, because that's the main thing, and it's just those little power trips that gets people so fucking pissed off at you.
Yeah. But anyway, guys, sorry, we didn't mean to take such a tangent onto talking about, the police and all that stuff, but I mean, it's kind of hard to avoid with the George Floyd situation and all the controversy around his death. But anyway, another thing that happened after George Floyd's death was a big press into the Black Lives Matter stuff. And kind of want to talk about that real quick, because there's a separation of, and a lot of people don't seem to know this, but a separation between the movement of Black Lives Matter and the activist group. And this is concurrent with a lot of stuff like this. So I want to go out and say firsthand that I don't support the Black Lives Matter activist group, but I definitely support the Black Lives Matter movement. The activist group are, with any sort of group or organization that tries to get a movement going, A little bit too radical for my taste. Um, I I will say I acknowledge and I understand the reason for the rioting and stuff like that. I understand. People are angry and rioting takes place because of that, but you can try to persuade me all day that that's the right thing to do, and at the end of the day it's not. Responding to violence with violence is never the right answer. And I know that some people have that mentality where it's like, well, for me it's the answer, and it's like, okay, well, that's you. I mean, there are certain situations where violence would be my answer, but hardly ever do I respond to violence with violence. I always try to simmer down the situation, always try to use words, always try to provoke the person's emotions to get them to understand or see my side of things. And, I just feel like the responding to police violence with more violence is just going to give them more of a cause to keep you guys down, keep everybody oppressed like they want. It gives them the reason to do the things that they do. They go, well, see, these people are violent, this is why we have to act violently. And it's like, you guys are just going in this endless circle of violence.
Mm-hmm.
And and I mean, I don't mean to like throw this over everything, but that's not what MLK stood for. MLK was a huge advocate for talking about peace amongst races and trying to strive for equality, and he wanted that through love, not hate. And violence is always inspired by hate, not love. It always comes from a place of hate. Even if you're doing it because you love somebody, it's coming from a place of hate because you hate that person for hurting somebody you loved, or a group that you love. So I mean, like I said, I understand that you guys are angry about this stuff, but it's just ultimately it's damning you. You have to fight hate with love. You have to fight this violence with love. You gotta be the bigger person.
Yeah, I wanna use a loose quote from one of my favorite comedians, Jim Jeffries, because it's one of those things that's so wholesome because he's not a fucking wholesome comedian.
Yeah.
And he said this shit. If you know who Jim Jeffries is, you know what I'm fucking talking about. If you don't, look him up. He's probably one of the most like rudest fucking comedians on the planet,
Yeah.
But I love him.
I know.
But he had a special where he even says like, you can't fight hate with hate. It just makes that, and it really was just a turn on Martin Luther King's quote, which I'll say in a second. And it's one of those like, it's weird where even someone who defaults to being observant and putting in a comedic fashion, luckily. Being observant but putting it with a hateful spin, like even him saying like you can't fucking do this. Like being hateful doesn't do anything. It just breeds more hate. I think that sends me more over the edge than someone who is already a lovable person. That said, like Martin Luther King was, like he was a man of God. I don't know why that pushes me more. Like if someone that's just so, who sees like all the evil in the world and like sees the shitty side of reality and shit like that. I don't know why that pushes me more, but it does. But Martin Luther King's quote was, returning violence for violence multiplies violence, adding deeper darkness to a night or already devoid of stars. Darkness cannot drive out darkness, only light can do that. Hate cannot drive out hate, only love can do that.
Yeah.
That is his direct quote.
Yeah, that's beautifully said.
Yeah, and people misquote him all the time. Like I think I don't know the quote exactly, but like one of my friends on Facebook, he was sharing Black Lives Matter and stuff. Honestly, who wasn't? Which is a good thing. But he was also sharing like quotes from MLK. Now one of them was about like if you respond to violence with violence, you're gonna get more violence and shit like that. It was just another take on that same quote I just said. And I'm pretty sure it was a direct quote from him, but he took it in the way like, oh yeah, so like rioting's fucking fine because even Martin Luther King said like, well, what else do you expect? It's like, no, that's not what he fucking meant though. He meant to stop repeating it.
Yeah.
Like I get it. Like he said he understands why that happens, but it needs to stop. That's what he said.
Yeah. And unfortunately, I know people are going to bring this up too, but unfortunately, yes, MLK was assassinated, so yes, he was shut down with violence. But look we're still talking about him here in 2020, and we're spreading his message, which was do not respond to this violence with violence. he wouldn't have wanted all the rioting that happened after he got assassinated. That wasn't his point. It's like the people that are rioting and responding to all of this violence with violence, he's talking to you. He wouldn't be your advocate. He wouldn't support the things that you're doing. So it's like, take a second to step back and self-analyze yourself and be like, I'm doing the wrong thing here. Sometimes you just got to be the bigger person, and it fucking sucks. I've had to do it throughout my life. Like I said, we're only 20-something, but I've had to do it multiple times throughout my life where I just have to swallow my pride and be the bigger person, and it fucking blows, but sometimes you just got to do it to get the right thing done. But anyway...
Yeah, that's saying something for Chris, because he's an asshole.
Yeah. Notoriously so. But that brings us to like our final question of all of this, and that's, what can we do to combat racism? So I have another quote from the same article from the Washington Post that I referenced earlier, and this is coming from that same psychologist. She said, "The only way to change bias is to change culture. You have to change what is acceptable in society. People today complain about politically correct culture, but what that does is provide a check on people's outward attitude, which in turn influences how we think about ourselves internally. Everything we're exposed to gives us messages about who is good and bad." So it's like basically what she's saying is, it kind of boils down to individuals. I mean, she talks about it being a culture, but what does that culture come from if not everybody as an individual coming together and agreeing on something? So it's like we were talking about, I kind of feel like our age groups and stuff are getting a little bit better about this as we mature and everything. And as the generations seem to keep coming out, they seem to be a little more accepting of one another and stuff like that. So that is good to know that the generations going forward might, finally put an end to all of this hatred. But yeah, ultimately it boils down to the fact that we as individuals just need to do our very best every single day to fight this, to not be a fucking racist asshole, to, if you see a black person, to not immediately think like, oh, they're gonna rob me, or if you see a Mexican, do not immediately think that they're here illegally. Some of them work their asses off. Most black people don't fucking steal. Don't be that ignorant. You're smarter than that. And the same can be said for black people. Don't automatically assume that a white person is racist, because not all of us are. Some of us don't see you as, just a black person. I still see you as color. I'm not fucking ignorant. I'm not like, oh, I don't see color. I do see color. I see you as a black person, and I just see you as an equal. I don't see you as anything different. And that's how it should be.
Yeah, it's not about tolerance necessarily. I feel more it should be about indifference. Like, who gives a shit? Who fucking cares that you're black? I don't care. It doesn't matter. Like I'm, and it like fine. I'll appreciate your culture, but it's not my culture. I don't have to care about it, and that can be said for fucking everything. Honestly, like just every unique person. Gay, black, straight, fucking Asian, like it doesn't matter. It's not about tolerance. You shouldn't have to be tolerant of someone else. You should just be indifferent. I don't fucking care if you're black. You know what I mean? I don't care if you're Mexican. I don't care if you're Christian. I don't care if you're Muslim. I don't care if you're gay. I don't care if you're straight. I don't care if you're trans. Just fucking be a good fucking person. That's it. That's all I care about.
Yeah. And with that message, that brings us to our first segment, a Tipplers Tidbit.
Tipplers Tidbit.
Today's Tipplers Tidbit is about my personal favorite drink, the gin and tonic. During the 19th century, Brits began to move to India after the Sepoy Rebellion of 1857, and subsequently the popularity of gin and tonic spiked. In efforts to avoid malaria, the demand for Indian tonic water, or a gin and tonic, grew. Gin was added to the tonic water to soothe the bitter taste. So yeah, basically it just started out as kind of a thing to combat malaria, which is kind of funny. So I should be, pretty healthy for malaria with all the gin and tonic I drink. But yeah, anyway, guys, this has been your Tipplers Tidbit.
Tidbit.
All right, so topic number 2, that is going to be homophobia, which is another tough topic to tackle, but we're going to try to do it. And that was a lot of T's right there. A tough topic to tackle. Anyway, we're going to try to talk about this, again, as openly honest as we can, but, like I said, forgive us if we say anything ignorant. But basically, going to give you a little history of what homophobia is if you don't know, which, I mean, like, again, you should. But homophobia is basically just being... I don't even know how to say this in, like, layman's terms. You react negatively to homosexual people. I don't know really how else to say it. I personally don't like the term homophobia because phobia means fear, and I don't think people who go against homosexuals are like necessarily afraid of them. I just don't like that term. I think there should be a different term for it.
I guess in more of like a Christian standpoint, like maybe you view gay. Well, I mean, like, and I by Christian I mean that loosely, more like asshole Christians. You know who I'm talking about. I feel like they would more fear gay people just because that's kind of how they are. They view them as evil. And I'm not, like I said, it's not Christians across the board. I know, I get it, but like with like Westboro Baptist Church and shit like that, like they genuinely fear gay people. Yeah, exactly. You know what I'm talking about. So I think that's where more of that term comes from. But I do kind of agree with you. Like I've been, I guess I've been homophobic before, in the more loose terms, but it's not really. It's more like I felt like the girl at the bar that never stopped getting hit on. You know what I mean? Yeah, so like I just wanted to be left alone.
I want to talk about that later, but like I said, we'll talk about that in a little bit.
Okay.
But anyway, to start us off is, let's talk about like how we did with racism. What would drive somebody to be homophobic? And again, it could be upbringing. Like you said, it tends to be a thing with Christians, more commonly Christian hate groups, but there is a thing in Christianity, which is, homosexuality is not accepted. I don't know how it is today because I don't read the Bible. I don't read any new versions of the Bible. I don't go to church. I don't really communicate with anybody in the Christian community, but my common knowledge is that it's not accepted amongst the Christian community, probably not the Catholic community, probably not anything that has to do with any sort of Christian or Christ-related religion. So... And most religions, for that matter, don't seem to accept homosexuality. So you could say that it could be upbringing due to like religious, growing up religiously could be why you're homophobic. But I also read an article, which was published on pbs.org on their Frontline thing. I don't know what Frontline is. It must be some sort of like show for them or something. But anyway, the article says Slaby, 1994, which I'm guessing references a psychologist. It didn't really explicitly say. But Slaby, 1994, contended that anxiety about homosexuality typically does not occur in individuals who are same-sex oriented, but it usually involves individuals who are ostensibly heterosexual and have difficulty integrating their homosexual feelings or activity. The relationship between homophobia and latent homosexuality has not been empirically investigated and is one of the purposes of the present study. So basically what he's saying is that the anxiety about homosexuality or being homophobic doesn't often occur in people who are homosexual, but it more comes from people who are heterosexual because they struggle to acknowledge and deal with their homosexual feelings. So, I mean, that's controversial to say, but let me go on a little bit.
No, that kind of makes sense, actually, but yeah, go ahead.
Specifically, the present study was designed to investigate whether homophobic men show more sexual arousal to homosexual cues than homophobic men as suggested by psychoanalytic theory. The results of this study indicate that individuals who score in the homophobic range and admit negative affect toward homosexuality demonstrate significant sexual arousal to male homosexual erotic stimuli. So, again, what he's saying in layman's terms is that homosexuals did not seem more excited by homosexual content as men who claimed that they were homophobic heterosexuals. So basically, basically people who were saying that they were straight and they were homophobic were getting more aroused by homosexual content than homosexuals. So,
okay. So, wait, hold on. hold on. Okay, so it's more like, and this doesn't necessarily mean that you can be straight, or rather, these people saying they're straight, like, it's not like they're in the closet, which is a term for being secretly gay. It's not like these people are in the closet. It's more as if they haven't experienced those, or not even experienced, but like acted on homosexual urges or anything like that. So it's more like straight men that never actively went out and tried to, like, broaden their sexual horizons, like try to have sex with a guy, try to kiss a guy or anything like that. Because with some people, that's what it takes. It takes you kissing a guy or kissing a girl if you're a girl, and kind of solidifying, like, am I into this? And then when you do that, or have sex with someone.
I am not.
Yeah, exactly. But the taboo of thinking that, you're so fucking straight, but you've never had that before. It's one of those, like, feelings that you get, like, oh, I know this is wrong for me, but I've never tried it. So, like, it's your subconscious being like, I want to try it, so that's why you get aroused. Because, I think I've mentioned to Chris before, and Chris knows that I've had, like, a couple of homosexual experiences. And, like, it's one of those things where, I've had homosexual experiences with my friends, and it's more about being solidified in my comfortability with my current sexuality, and not current sexuality, it's my sexuality in general. Fuck it, it's fluid. I don't care. I'll fuck a giraffe tomorrow. I don't give a shit. But no, I just mean, like, I'm comfortable making gay jokes and stuff like that with my friends because I don't care. They know I'm fucking straight, but it's pushing those boundaries to kind of make solidify myself in my own sexuality. And I've kissed a guy before, and I've fucked around with a guy before and stuff like that whenever I was really young, like in my early teens and stuff. But it's just one of those things where I'm like, okay, well, I wasn't into that, but now I know that. So now I can see, like, it's one of those, it's actually kind of a good thing because now I can acknowledge, like, oh, yeah, that's a good looking guy. Or if I can acknowledge that guys are attractive, because some guys, they're so fucking weird about that shit. And you know exactly who I'm talking about. Where certain guys are like, oh, I don't know, you look fine. It's like, no, dude, you look like, you can acknowledge if a guy's fucking, yeah, like, I can be like, no, bro, you look hot as shit right now. Like, and that's fine. That's fine. And I know other people that have never had gay experiences, and they still have the same mentality that I have, but I actually had to go out of my way to try to experience some of those, homosexual feelings, and then I'm just like, oh, well, fuck, that was a mistake. And then I just went back and I was like, all right, well, no, now I know I'm straight.
Yeah.
And unfortunately, well, not even unfortunately, it's just one of those things about growing up in general. Like, I'm sorry, but if you're a teenager, like, even if you haven't, like, had sex with a guy or kissed a guy or anything like that, if you've never watched porn, like gay porn, I'm sorry, but guess what? You might have to go watch gay porn to solidify your sexuality, because that's part of it. That's part of you solidifying where you stand on your own sexual orientation.
Yeah. And just so you're not alone in this, I've explored my own sexuality. That's how I know I'm straight. Because I didn't go have sex with a dude, but I've kissed another guy, not passionately, not romantically, but I have kissed another guy. I know I didn't enjoy it, and I explored that part of myself as, like, am I homosexual? And I found out the answer was no. And it's like, that's totally fine. Yeah. And luckily enough for me, I did it in my early years. I did it when I was in my teens. So now I don't have those questions. I don't have those doubts where I'm like, fuck, am I gay? Like, I might be gay. And it's like, no, I never wake up and be like, oh, I just, I might be happier if I was with a man. It's like, no, I am comfortably heterosexual because I have explored that homosexual side of me. Every single guy on this planet has homosexual tendencies. You cannot lie about it. It is Freudian science that there are homosexual tendencies in everybody.
Yeah, and I guarantee you've watched gay porn. Yeah. Like, either So it's just one of those things where you're just like, fuck it, I might as well look at it. You know what I mean?
Dude, it's like, even when I'll be on regular porn, I'll, like, see a gay porn for a minute, and I'm like, yeah, I almost clicked on it. It almost got me.
Yeah. Dude, I've gotten tricked so many times where I've seen like thumbnails on the side, and I'm like, man, that chick has a fat. That's not a
That
chick.
is a man.
That's a man with a straight dump truck.
But no, all
But
we're
it's just one of
saying
those-
is just you don't have to be scared if you feel homosexual urges, because I mean literally that's what this study was for. It's basically saying like guys who are straight up like I'm so heterosexual, all I could ever think about is women. Well, you're a fucking liar, because they showed you homosexual erotic content and you reacted positively to it as if, you know, you were getting aroused. And I mean, I didn't go any further into this, but it actually goes on to say that they monitored men's erections and stuff like that in response to this homosexual content, and most of them were getting an erection from it. So it's, you know, it's like, don't fight those urges. It's fine. It is totally normal. And if you have your doubts about it, explore that, because that's the only way you're ever going to know. And if you end up being one of those people who suppress that shit, you're going to be one of those guys who's in their 40s, 50s, 60s, whatever, and ends up turning gay because you never got to explore that. Now, I'm not saying that that's what causes you to be gay, but I'm just saying that's what's going to make you explore that and, you know, ruin that stuff with your life because you're like, I need to know. And it's like, well, explore that now. If you're gay, it's fine. Be gay. You know, like whatever. Who cares? And especially nowadays, it's more
especially
accepted. You're not going to be ousted because you're a homosexual. But
but sorry, it's just one of those things where I'm at, like, I don't know why, but like it's so fucking ridiculous about I was thinking about like how we used to view gay people, and to be fair, it's such a small amount of time. Like, this is kind of the opposite of like not even racism, but like I mean, gay people were oppressed and shit like that, but we have more evidence for like being okay to be gay and like shit like that, like for a long fucking time. Like in ancient Rome, guess what they used to do? They used to butt fuck. In ancient Greece, they used to butt fuck. like it wasn't a fucking big deal. Sex was just sex to them. Like pleasure was just pleasure. That was fucking it, and it didn't matter. Like, I don't know. It's weird to think that like for quite a while we were oppressing gay people, but like it's just weird to have that like back and forth. And I mean, like with racism, it didn't really become a problem until what was it? It was like a cultural difference between like I want to say it was like in Transylvania or some shit. I fucking remember reading an article about it. I'm sorry, I shouldn't have brought it up. But it was like a definitive moment where race started becoming a thing, but it was more like everyone kind of already knew, like, oh, it's because he's from fucking Africa. Like, everyone in Africa is black. That's just how they are. And up north, everyone's fucking white. And like now we know it's just because of how close you are to the equator. But you know what I mean? But like with like sexual orientations and shit, it's always been shaky and weird in different cultures, and especially in like European culture, it seemed like it was more appropriate in European culture than it was anywhere else. And then all of a sudden Europe, and I guess you can technically call British people European, but then all of a sudden, like, from Europeans with the English and stuff, like they weren't okay with it, and then like Christianity wasn't okay with it, and it was just a really odd thing to put in there, like who definitively decided that wasn't okay.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Anyway, sorry, just a weird train of thought. But so back to stereotypes, like we were saying in the racial part of this, some of the homosexual stereotypes we're going to get into right now. So like with gay men lisping while they talk, gay men are always feminine, gays are sexual deviants, lesbians are butch, lesbians are only ugly women. Do you think that's true? Because I actually have opinions on this, and people might not like it.
I was like, when you get into the stereotypes, it always gets controversial. And I just want to preface this by saying, like you were talking about earlier when we first started this subject, I was a little bit homophobic in my earlier years. I'll admit that. And I still have a tad bit of homophobia in there. I'm very accepting of homosexuals now. Like, I don't have a problem with it, but I think it's because of the same reasons you had. You know, we had certain people around us, and I don't want to name any names or anything like that, but there's certain people around us that were homosexual, and they made it very well known, and they didn't seem to hide it around us, and they made it very well known that they were attracted to us. And, you know, that's what made us uncomfortable, is interactions like that, where you're not about it, and, you know, shit like that. And it's kind of like the same for a girl being hit on at a bar when she just wants to be alone and drink. It's like, you don't want to do anything that this guy wants to do. You know he wants to fuck you. You just want him to leave you alone. And that's kind of how it felt. And that kind of drove those homosexual or homophobic feelings where you're like, dude, just leave me alone. Like, I don't want anything to do with this. And
but you start defaulting to saying like those words in your head, like fucking, you know, like being like, leave me alone, fucking flamer, and shit like that. Like, you're just like in your head about it, and it's like, no, this dude's just attracted to me. It's not that big of a deal.
And it's like, not only, it's like, now it's like, I realize I should have just taken it as a compliment. He wasn't trying to be a dick or anything. He wasn't trying to turn me gay. He just thought I was attractive, and I should have just taken it as a compliment, blew it off, like, big deal. He wasn't molesting me. He wasn't trying to rape me. He was just catcalling. And I don't really see anything that wrong with catcalling, as long as it doesn't turn aggressive or anything.
Yeah, not like that Gillette commercial. Did you ever see that?
I know what you're talking about.
So just quick reference. So the Gillette commercial I'm referencing is it was specifically about like sexism, I think. It was the dumbest shit on the fucking planet. It was like the clip that stands out to me was a dude standing up against the wall, and a chick walks by, and he's like, oh, and he goes to go talk to her, and then another guy just like stops him in his tracks, puts his hands on his chest, like, no, bro, that's not cool. It's like, oh, sorry, am I not allowed to go talk to fucking women because I'm attracted to them? Like, that's the dumbest fucking thing I have ever seen before in my fucking life.
If we fought that mentality, then almost none of us would be here, okay?
It's so fucking dumb.
The male seeking a woman thing is like what drives our society, okay? So we need to let that happen. We just need to teach them not to be dicks if they get turned down. If they get rejected, take the rejection. Exactly. That's it. That's the only message you need to spread.
Yeah, and the same thing goes for the rejector. So like with our gay experiences, like with a gay guy hitting on us, just having that experience being like, I'm uncomfortable, like you could just be like, hey, look, man, I appreciate it, but I'm not gay, and but I do appreciate it. And I've said that before, but I've also said the complete fucking opposite before, which wasn't cool. And so then it turned, it went around for a little bit that I was homophobic, because like I think it was like my first not my first experience with a gay guy, but my first experience with a gay guy like hitting on me. And I was like younger, so I was like, get the fuck away from me, blah, 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 you know what I mean? But like now, like I have gay people hit on me pretty frequently at my store that I work at, and they're and it's very subtle and stuff. And I think only like once or twice has someone been like, hey, so can I get your number? I'm like, hey man, I have a girlfriend and I have a baby, like, I'm not gay, I appreciate it though, like, thank you. And they're just like, oh yeah, well, you're really cute. And I'm like, oh, thanks. And I blush and, but now I take it as like a general compliment. I don't fucking care.
That's what I was going to say is the last time I got hit on by a homosexual, I was like actually kind of flattered. I was like, hey, you know what? I'm feeling like it's kind of like getting hit on by a girl. You're like, all right, it takes a lot for a girl to say something. So I feel like it takes the same amount for like a homosexual guy to say something, because he's got to be very open about his sexuality, got to be very comfortable. And then not only that, but got to be comfortable enough to approach you and say like, hey, you're a fucking attractive person. And you're like, hell yeah. Because I've only been catcalled by girls like 2 times maybe. And I've been catcalled by homosexual men probably the same amount. So.
So yeah, like as far as like gays or sexual deviants being a stereotype, I don't think that's necessarily true. I think they're just proud of their sexuality because they were oppressed by it. I think gays have sex just as much as straight people do. And I mean, like, I think the only thing that I see a difference in, like, with sexual deviancy is that, like, gays actually have, like, a different platform for dating and stuff like that. Like, I don't give a fuck. Like, gays are so straight up as far as that goes because they're gay. Like, that's part of their identity now, just because they were oppressed, since that's their identity. If they go on like dating websites, like not dating websites, but dating apps like Grindr and stuff, that's all they're there for, is just have sex. But for some reason, with straight people, it has to be like, oh, we have to talk first, and we have to do this. Like, why can't we just fuck for fuck's sake? Jesus Christ! But like, I don't think they're sexual deviants. I just think that they're proud of their sexual orientation because they were oppressed for so long that in a form of subconscious rebellion, they actively have sex. And they have no problem with going for that as easily, especially in their own community. But like as far as like gay men hitting on straight people, I don't think that happens as frequently as people think. As far as gay men talking with a lisp and stuff, I can't really say that much about it because like with my with a lot of my gay friends, they had that lisp or they had like the more flamboyant nature and stuff like that. So I actually don't know what that attributes to, just because, I'm straight, I don't get it. But I mean, I have feminine features. Like I can't explain it because I know this isn't a video, but I walk with like my hand up sometimes because I always watch my mom do that.
Yeah, the
like Chris knows what I'm
hand.
talking about. Yeah, the floating hand, like, and it's more of like a feminine thing where like if I'm busy with something, I'll keep my hands like up like a tyrannosaur because I fucking like my mom always used to do that, and that's more of a feminine feature. So I don't think that gay men acting inherently feminine is more a gay feature. I think that's just a feature in general. So that doesn't really bug me, but like as far as like the gay men I've experienced, predominantly I've experienced more men with like lisps or more higher octave voices or acting more feminine in general. But honestly, some of those gay men they go more feminine because some men are more butch, and that's just how they go. Like some more butch gay men can still enjoy those feminine features because that's just what instinctually drives us. So maybe that's just part of it where they can just, they acknowledge that they are attracted to feminine features, but they're just not attracted to females in general. So they like men that are more feminine in nature, and so the guys that act feminine or are feminine, adopt that because they want to seem more alluring to another, manlier gay man. That's where I default to anyway. As far as lesbians though, like lesbians being butch, I've seen fucking lesbians of all flavors. I'm not even gonna lie.
Not just on the internet.
I mean, yeah, and and like me and Chris, I think me and Chris actually know more lesbians or bisexual women than we know gay men.
I've definitely known more lesbian or bisexual women in my life.
Yeah, but I think I've seen more. I've seen half and half. Like I've seen really fucking girly like lesbians where I'm just like, hey, can I get your number? They're like, oh, I'm lesbian. I'm like, no fucking shit. You know what I mean? I'm like, God damn it, you really? I mean, they might have just been turning me down, but either way, it's just one of those things where I'm just like, I've known a lot of women that are like really girly, or rather really feminine, in their nature, and they are strictly lesbian. I've known a lot of lesbian women that are women. They aren't transitioning, and they're just more butch. They like wearing men's clothes and stuff like that, and it's the same thing back and forth. Like maybe. Lesbian women that are more girly are just still attracted to lesbian women who are more men just because they like those masculine tendencies.
Yeah, so again, it's just a case of like, you're comparing the individual to the majority. It's not always the case. It's just, you got to play it case by case. It's not always the same thing. Like we said with the racism thing, you can't stereotype like that. Yeah, it's case by case.
Yeah, there's a reasoning for it. Like stereotype. Honestly, with the homosexual stereotypes, I do think they're true, but I think there's a reasoning behind it.
Yeah, and that is the thing too. Is with the homosexual stereotypes, it's like most of those are a little bit true, but like you said, there is an explanation for it. And most of the most of the stereotypes about homosexuals aren't inherently negative. It's just some of them are observations, like the lisping voice of the male homosexuals or the butch nature of a lesbian. It's like, well, yeah, some of it makes sense. They're fitting their part. It just makes sense. It's not inherently negative to say those stereotypes are true.
Yeah. Anyway, so let's move on past the stereotypes to the legalities, which is illegal to be homosexual, same-sex marriage, hate crimes, etc. Luckily, in this country, it is legal to be married to the same sex, which is fucking astounding. Yeah. I was like, honestly, like at the time, I think a lot of people viewed me as being like, oh, you're just pandering whenever I was trying to like express like that I am genuinely happy for these people, being able to same sex, because that's all marriage is, just about fucking love. You know what I mean? And like honestly, like I'm not big on marriage just because like, and I'm not big on marriage in general, but it's more for like I don't think that marriage should be dictated by our government. I think it should be more like, okay, officially I love this person, and that's what marriage should be. I just don't think that it should be really into like our government and stuff. That's why I don't believe in marriage. As far as same-sex marriage being legalized, though, that's fucking astounding. I don't care. It's great. I mean, in some countries, 85% of lesbian, gay, bisexual, and transgender, LGBT students experience homophobic and transphobic violence in school. And like, how fucking great is it that like one of the most, homophobic countries, one of the most homophobic countries actually is like, that's getting lessened now. I'm really proud of this country as far as this subject goes anyway. And I'm sure it's still around and I'm sure it's still happening, but
Yeah, we're getting better with every year. That's the positive thing, because I do still remember when same-sex marriage was legalized here, because that was in 2015, actually, on June 26, 2015. The U.S. Supreme Court struck down all state bans on same-sex marriage, legalized it in all 50 states, and required states to honor out-of-state same-sex marriage license in the case of Obergefell versus Hodges. That's very hard to say. Obergefell versus Hodges.
Obergefell.
Yeah, Obergefell. So yeah, anyway, I remember that happening. And yeah, even at the time I was like, good, they should be allowed to get married. And there's people who make that stupid joke like, oh yeah, they should be allowed to be as miserable as the rest of us. Like, no, they should just be allowed to express the fact that I love this person, I'm promising myself to this person explicitly for life. They should be allowed that same privilege, no matter what their sexuality is, because what the fuck difference does it make, honestly? Yeah, I'll say my piece on that a little bit more later. But I also want to state that, while the United States and a lot of countries around the world accept gay marriage, there are still some places that don't. China, which is, the largest country in the world, does not legally recognize same-sex marriage at all, mostly due to their constitutional laws. Most of Africa actually doesn't acknowledge same-sex marriage, and no surprise here, but most of the Middle Eastern countries don't acknowledge same-sex marriage legally. So, and
yeah, like that one meme where he's all, "Why are you gay?" It's the fucking, it's legit on fucking air. It's a newscast, and it's a fucking dude who has a transsexual male, so a female transitioning to a male. He's all, "Why are you gay?" And she's like, or he is like, "What the fuck? Like, what? That's not a question." You know what I mean?
But yeah, it's just
sorry.
The unfortunate part with the African and Middle Eastern countries is most of that comes from their religious beliefs, which is based around the Islamic stuff. So it's based around Islamic laws, which is why they aren't legally allowed to get married. I mean, they need to get past that shit. I mean, the Middle Eastern countries have a lot to deal with other than just same-sex marriage.
Yeah.
But yeah, again, going into the LGBT community versus the LGBTQ plus activists, again, going back to the Black Lives Matter thing, the movement versus the activists, it's the same here, same situation. There's two different things. And a lot of people, when they think they're supporting the LGBT community, they are actually supporting the LGBT activists. I side with the community. I don't side with the activists, because as we were talking about in our Jeffrey Epstein episode, and might have been others, but I know in the Jeffrey Epstein episode we mentioned that pedophilia is being knocked around as an idea to be added into the LGBTQ plus community, and that's due to the activists. There are some activists out there who think that this is acceptable to be brought into that plus side of the LGBTQ plus. Hell no, it is not. And I think the vast majority of the LGBT community can agree that they don't want fucking pedophilia to be associated with, lesbians, gays, and bisexuals, transgenders. That has nothing to do. Pedophilia is a sickness. It's a fucking disgusting that's a deviance. Loving the same sex is not the same as loving a child. If you're in love with a child, you're fucking gross, or you're a parent. I'm a parent, so I love my child. I'm not gonna have sex with my fucking kid. If you're gonna have sex with a kid, you're a fucking disgusting person. You should get off the planet immediately, in the worst way possible. So no, I do not side with anybody who wants that accepted into that community. And like I said, I feel like I can say that the LGBT community would not want that associated with them, and that most of them would say that they don't want that to be part of it. So, anyway, there's a glaring issue that I think needs to be addressed, and I don't know if we're the right people to make this, to address this problem, but we're going to do it anyway, because I've seen it firsthand, and it's people pretending to be homosexual or pretending to be straight, and more so the first one than the latter being a problem. So, pretending to be homosexual, by that I mean those who are straight but pretend to be gay to assume the lifestyle and cultural benefits of homosexuality. Now, there might be some people out there who think, like, what are the benefits of being homosexual? There are benefits. The cultural richness of being a homosexual is very much there. There's a lot of people who actually like the gay lifestyle, and there's a lot of people who embrace that by doing things like metrosexuality, which is just, kind of appearing like a homosexual would, being a male, taking care of yourself, looking very, not feminine, but, leaning towards femininity while still retaining your masculinity. But there's people who take that to the extreme, and they actually pretend to be homosexual. And like I said, I've seen this firsthand, because when I was in middle school, there was this trend of pretending to be bisexual. And I say this because it very much was a trend. It wasn't just people coming out. I know a lot of people can be in defense of that and saying that they were actually coming out. No, these were people that were explicitly heterosexual. And then when this came around that a lot of popular people were suddenly bisexual, all these other people, all these other followers, I should say, decided, hey, I'm bisexual too. Yet, funny enough, none of them ever dated the opposite sex, or the same sex, I should say. None of them ever dated the same sex, and none of them have ever dated the same sex. So it was very much a trend, and there are very much so people who pretend to be homosexual. And if you do that, you're fucking disgusting. I hate you with all my being, so I can't even imagine how homosexual people feel. Because if you pretend to do that, you're taking away so much from the people that really are. You're taking away so much.
It's like it's kind of, it's a term I think I saw pretty recently. It's called woke fishing. It's like the earliest form of that. It's kind of like catfishing, but it's basically like pretending to be something that you're not in order to like get something for that. So like the article I was reading, it was like people that are acting more liberal on like Tinder and stuff like that, so they can have sex with women, or people of the opposite, or whatever, just dating in general, or having sex because of your political like defenses. So like in school, it seemed like you just wanted to be more popular or more recognized, and use using being bisexual as your default to being more accepted. Because bisexual, it seems like it's more back then it seemed like it was more accepted than just being straight up gay. Because then like straight people were just like, oh, okay, like, and especially how Chris said, like, if you're obviously not dating anybody of the other race, or not race, Jesus Christ, anybody of the other
sexuality,
Jesus Christ, I can't fucking talk now. Then people were like, oh, well, he's dating a girl right now, it's not that big a deal, and then you can just get accepted by that. It just seemed like a really fucking shitty thing to be like, oh, I just want everyone to like me. And like Chris said, you're a piece of shit if you did that. I'm sorry. Yeah. Like, I think, I'm not going to lie, I think I said that when I was in school, but that was because I was going out and actually trying stuff. You know what I mean? And maybe it was a leap for me to be like, oh, I'm bisexual, when it's not, like, that wasn't definite, but I was also young, so I do understand, like, just saying shit and not thinking about it first. But I knew plenty of people that, like how Chris said, like, never fucking dated anybody of the opposite or the same sex, and they always just said that just so people can be like, oh, that, you know, that's really cool of you and blah blah blah. And I'm glad and I'm happy that you're doing that. It's like, shut the fuck up. Like, they're not doing anything. But on the opposite end of the spectrum, this is a completely separate thing because people that are homosexual but pretend to be straight have done that for so long to avoid prejudice, violence, and judgment. Yeah. And that I understand because fucking back in the day, we used to burn gay people at the stake. So I kind of get if you want to pretend to be straight for a while and just have fucking gay sex whenever it's convenient and like super private. Yeah. Back in the day.
Yeah, and I actually...
That's a whole fucking separate thing.
I do want to cover that real quick. That the reason why there's that derogatory term for homosexual people, and I'm just going to say it, so I'm going to be blunt, but the term faggot refers to using a bundle of sticks to a bundle of kindling for starting fires. And the reason that homosexual people are referred to as faggots by douchebags that like to call people that is because homosexual people were burned at the stake just like witches and, unfortunately, people of color back then with bundles of faggots. So when they would burn a homosexual person, that's why they would call them that, because they were being burned on a bundle of faggots. And it's important that you know that because everybody should know the reasoning behind some of these terms and stuff like that, and some people don't know that. So when you say that, that is a very hateful thing to say. You know, you can joke around in private with your friends and stuff like that. I understand that. I do get that. But don't say it to a gay person. Don't say it to a gay person hatefully either. It's a very hateful thing to say. It's just the same as saying the N-word to a black person.
Yeah. Yeah, because honestly, like I've said it before, like, I don't know about recently, but I've said it before, like, it's more like the shock value because people aren't expecting you to say that. So, like, it's good for comedy, and I hate to say that, but it is good for comedy. I don't care. But outside of that, like Chris said, like, it's just one of those things that, like, as long as you acknowledge that you shouldn't be a rude piece of shit and say that to a gay person, then it should be fine. And honestly, I've known fucking gay people that honestly don't care because words are just words to them. But just be safe. Don't assume that they're that chill with you. You know what I mean? Like, and I've known black people that let me say the N-word just because they thought it was funny seeing fucking white people say the N-word. Like, not with the hard R, but like, you know, in the friendly way that, you know, black people say it. But like, it's always gotten that kind of like value where it's funny because of the shock value. Like with Malik, he liked whenever I would walk down, like, I swear to God, he liked when I would walk down the school hallways and be like, hey, what's up? And everyone else would look at me like, what the fuck? And then he would be at the end of the hallway laughing his fucking dick off because he would just see a bunch of other white people in my small ass hometown and be like, bro, you can't say that. Like, I'm friends with him. I don't give a fuck. But he thought it was funny. But that's his prerogative. That's what he
it doesn't apply always. It's again,
that's not going to apply to every single. Yeah, it's not going to apply to every single black person. It's not going to apply to every single gay person. So just fucking know your audience. You know what I mean? But anyway, so as far as homosexuality directly affecting us, just really quick, guess what? It fucking does not. Yeah. All right? That's it. It doesn't affect you. It doesn't affect your religion. If someone's gay, what does that have to do with you? Like, if you're against gay people, don't fuck people in the ass. Don't fucking scissor with a chick. Like, it doesn't have anything to fucking do with you. Shut up. Yeah. Now, what can we do to combat homophobia? We can practice acceptance because, like I said, homosexuality does not directly affect you. It has nothing to fucking do with you. And unless someone happens to hit on you, politely be like, I appreciate it, but I'm not gay. Thank you very much. And fucking same thing with, you know, gay people. I've had, like, I've jokingly, you know, flirted with gay people, and they've been like, hey, look, it's not really cool to flirt with me just because you're not gay. It, you know, kind of puts me off, and it kind of makes me feel bad. And like, it was an odd experience, but I was like, oh, okay. Like, and I was, you know, jokingly doing it, but I was like, oh, okay, like, that's kind of fair. That's kind of like a chick flirting with you, and then like just her being like, oh, just kidding.
Oh no,
you know
I'm a lesbian. What are you doing? Like, wait, what?
Yeah. Outside of that, it's learn to self-reflect on our own identities, morals, and lifestyles rather than others. So, like we were saying before, fucking explore your own sexuality. It's fine. It fucking takes maximum one time, you know? for you to just be like, oh, I'm gonna watch gay porn to see how I feel about it. If I get hard, and I'm like, oh well, shit, I might need to explore this further.
Yeah.
And then it's gonna get to the point where you'll have a definitive answer. Explore your morals, so you know what's fucking right and wrong. I'm pretty sure you know not to murder and rape. It should be fucking defaulted not to make fun of people for their sexual orientation or the color of their skin either. And honestly, to self-reflect on our own lifestyles. I never understood the term lifestyle really because it's kind of unique to you. Like I don't really get like if there's I guess there can be a gay lifestyle, but that's more from a group that has been to the point where it's gotten to that point where it has to be segregated from normal society, and I don't know, it's kind of odd to think about. But outside of that, just address your personal conflicts, internal struggles with homosexuality, masculinity issues, etc. Just fucking talk to yourself in your own head, and you'll reach that answer. And don't be afraid to talk to yourself and look inside yourself.
Yeah.
Outside of that, we have sexism and ageism. I'm gonna default to Chris on this one. Just because we don't have a lot of time left.
Yeah, and it's the same can be said with sexism and ageism. So sexism being like, thinking negatively of women when you're a man, and thinking negatively of men when you're a woman, and with ageism being, thinking negatively of an old person when you're a young person, vice versa. It's the same. All the same connotations apply. Don't stereotype. Don't judge. Stereotypes with women is they can't drive. Like we made that joke earlier. It was a joke. We know women can drive. There's plenty of professional drivers. There's women in NASCAR and shit like that, obviously. And it's the same with old people. Old people can't deal with technology. Fuck that. The old people are inventing our technology, okay? It's not just young people out there doing it. Steve Jobs wasn't fucking 20-something years old when he was running Apple and fucking inventing new things and stuff like that. He was creating new stuff all the time, and he was older. I mean, like 50s or something. Not old, but still. Not some young dude, inventing shit. So it's just same things apply. Don't stereotype. Don't draw conclusions just from an initial what the fuck is the word I'm trying to say? Like, just don't judge a book by its cover is what I'm trying to say. Like, don't judge a book by its cover.
Yeah.
Old, young, woman, man, black, white. Just don't. It doesn't matter. Put it out of your head. Don't even factor it in as anything. Just see a person as a person. Like, I mean, with my friends that were of color or gay or whatever, I never took that into account when I was describing them to somebody. And it's like, that should be the thing. Yeah. You should never be like, well, my black friend. Like, the only reason I ever addressed them as my black friends in this podcast is specifically because we're talking about race. But never in my life have I been like, yeah, my black friend Anthony, like, me and him are real good friends. Like, or my gay friend so-and-so. Like, I would never do that because it's not something to define them by.
Yeah, I only really bring up these people, like, well, not only bring up these people, but, like, outside of that, if I'm like, oh, my friend Malik was, we were talking about this game and blah, 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 like, that's pretty much it. But, like, outside of that, like, how Chris was just saying, it's just the topic that we're on. Like, we don't actually fucking talk in those terms. And, like, another thing, I know we didn't really talk about transsexuals that much, but the same rules apply to homophobia and stuff. They're just fucking people. Who cares if they want to fucking be a man or a woman? I'm not gonna lie. I've seen fucking trans women, men transitioning to be women, and I thought they were hot as shit. like if you haven't seen a fucking like legit trans woman, you're a fucking liar for one, and for two, if you haven't been sexually aroused by a trans woman, you're also a fucking liar. If I were to take off someone's pants and they had a penis, I'd be like, well, I mean, how far can we go till I get uncomfortable? I'm a pretty liberal dude. I don't give a fuck. I mean, if I don't have to have a dick in my butt, I don't care. I'll just see your ass, right? You're shaved? All right, cool. But I'm just saying, I know we didn't talk about trans people that often in this particular episode, but it is just the same rules apply. They're just fucking people. Now, I just want to move on
Come on. So what's holding everything up here?
Art department.
So the grips are holding us back?
All right, try that take one more time.
1 second.
Hey, quiet on the set!
Tipplers, take 2. Hey, Mark.
Action!
So, movies about fucking racism. There's actually quite a bit. One of them is 12 Years a Slave, which I haven't actually seen.
Yeah, you gotta watch it. It's a good movie.
What is it about?
Well, I mean, like the title suggests, he spends 12 years as a slave, but he was originally a free man, so it's basically a free black man, I should say. A free black man ends up being enslaved again after he's a free man. And it has Michael Fassbender in it as the slave owner, by the way.
Okay.
Yeah, he's a real dick, but I feel bad for not remembering the black guy who's in it. You'll know him if you see him. He's very famous, but it's a super good movie, super very drama, very heavy substance stuff. But yeah, it's very good.
Yeah. All right, so check out 12 Years a Slave. I'm sure it's on Netflix or whatever the fuck. Whatever.
Yeah, I believe it's on Netflix.
If you can't, you can always pirate it. I'm just kidding. I don't endorse that, but that's what I do. It's cool. Another movie is Get Out, which was directed by Jordan Peele. Yeah, Jordan Peele. It's it was an okay movie. It's not that I didn't like the movie. It was just one of those things where it was very deliberately a black man's experience against racism, and I understand that. It's just one of those things where I didn't directly relate to it, so maybe I didn't understand the movie as well. But it's essentially a black guy is with a white woman, and he goes to visit her white family, and they are acting odd as fuck. And if you haven't watched it, spoilers. Basically, they're transferring white people's minds into black people's bodies because black people are becoming more popular, and they have like more athletic ability and stuff like that.
Yeah.
And so it basically gets to the point where, like, oh, well, why are you targeting black people? And that's why. So it's like kind of like a backhanded compliment, like from white people in that movie. But it is kind of, it is very introspective and it's very interesting. I need to give it another watch because the first watch, like I said, I didn't sincerely enjoy it. But like I said, at the time, I might not have understood it as well.
Well, and again, for me, like a point I brought up earlier, for me, that movie is one of those movies where it just drives the racial divide, and that's why I don't like it. It really emphasizes the hatred that black people should have towards whites, and vice versa, and I just don't like that.
All right, so Django Unchained, which is another movie that is my fucking absolute favorite movie ever. Like, one of my favorite movies ever, rather. It's directed by Quentin Tarantino. I think it's based off another spaghetti western that Quentin used to watch or something like that. Either way, it stars Jamie Foxx, King Leonardo DiCaprio, Christoph Waltz, fucking amazing actors, and already me and Chris love Quentin Tarantino. And fuck, dude. I mean, like, there was like a controversy that came up about it, like, oh, well, how many times are you gonna have to say the N-word in the movie? It's like, okay, 1, it's for historical accuracy. 2, it's to show how brutal people were, and 3, it's fucking Quentin Tarantino. Like he always puts these in the movies on purpose to show the more, I guess, the brutality, and it's just like one of those like matter-of-factly things, like, this is how the world was, this is how the world is, blah blah blah. 'Cause even Pulp Fiction had that, you know. And it's fucking great movie. I want to spoil it. I mean, there's nothing really to spoil. It's just mostly about Django, who is Jamie Foxx's character, who is a slave that gets freed. He is looking for his wife, Broomhilda. And Christoph Waltz's character is a bounty hunter who basically trains Django to be a bounty hunter. And then he looks for his wife, Broomhilda. And it's fucking astounding. It's probably one of the...
And it tackles the racism thing quite well. And just other than that, the fucking acting is top notch. The fucking direction, the cinematography, the action, like, fucking everything is so good about that movie.
And honestly, I think I think the reason I love Leonardo DiCaprio in it so well is just because that movie and what's it called? Wolf of Wall Street. Probably his greatest examples of being a really good fucking villain. Oh,
Yeah.
and by the way, guys, I apologize. My kids are home with their mom, so if you hear any children in the background, that's them. I apologize for if that bothers you. We are recording pretty later, like, at dinner time, so at the end of the show, don't care. Sorry about that. Another movie, great movie with Edward Norton, and that's the only actor I remember in it, is American History X.
Edward
Furlong is American History X. Edward Norton is a skinhead. He's a Nazi. He's a, racist asshole. But in the movie, it actually brings to light actually pretty good points from their perspective. Unfortunately, I mean, that's kind of the point of the movie, where it's just like showing both sides of the same, of the same coin. And essentially what happens is he ends up killing a black guy that was outside of his house, and then he ends up going to prison, and he ends up becoming friends with a fellow inmate who is another black guy. And so once he gets out of prison, it kind of changes his perspective on things because of his experiences in prison. And it's a really good movie. It's very introspective. I love that movie so fucking much.
Yeah, it's a very good movie and a very good flip of the coin on that topic, because most of the racism movies that, especially the ones we've been talking about, have to deal with the perspective of a black man. This one has to do from the perspective of a racist white person, and then changing the way that they see race and stuff like that. So it's very good for that, and just the acting is very good and stuff like that as well.
Another movie is The Birdcage, which I actually never saw, so I'm going to let Chris default to this one.
You haven't seen The Birdcage? It's Robin Williams. Robin Williams, and then I can't remember the actor's name, but the guy who plays Timon from Lion King, the old ones, not the new one. And then Gene Hackman. But yeah, it's basically like a young couple's getting together. I don't remember which side, but I believe it's the girl's parents are very conservative Christian couple who don't appreciate gay stuff and all that. And then the boy's parents are Robin Williams and the Timon actor are homosexuals, and they have to pretend to be straight.
Oh, you know what?
In order for them to get married and all that.
You know what?
Stuff,
I have
the young couple.
I have seen that. It's
very funny.
My girlfriend's friend, who is a gay guy, he actually showed us the movie, and I actually really fucking liked that movie. It was funny as shit. And because Robin Williams was more like the butch one, and Gene was the flamboyant one, right? Or not Gene?
Oh, Gene Hackman is not gay, but the Timon
him.
is,
Sorry,
the super flamboyant one.
Yeah, that movie is fucking great.
I'm sorry, I don't remember his name. But,
yeah, it is.
But yeah, it's very funny.
Really fucking good. Another one is Brokeback Mountain with the late great departed Heath Ledger and still great actor Jake Gyllenhaal. I actually don't remember much about this movie because I watched it when I was really young, which I probably shouldn't have. But it was in the 1800s, right? That's when it was based, or was it modern?
No, I think it was modern day. Yeah, I'm pretty sure it was modern day.
What?
Yeah, just basically about two dudes that go on. I can't remember the specifics either because I only watched it the one time. But they go on some sort of trip together and basically end up finding out that they're in love with each other. And it kind of goes into the complications of one wanting to pursue that relationship and the other rejecting it. So it kind of tackles a lot of the stuff that we talked about with homophobia and just the internal conflict that people deal with addressing their own homosexuality and their own heterosexuality and stuff like that.
Oh, you know why? I thought it was a period piece? It's because I remember Anna Faris. She was the actress that played in Cindy in Scary Movie. Yeah, she's wearing a dress in one of the scenes, and I remember it was I don't know why, but I just vaguely remember her dress, and I thought it was more 1800s-ish kind of dress. That's why.
That's just because they're in Midwestern stuff.
But I just remember that dress, and I think that's why I remembered it that way, so I apologize for that. But yeah, it's still a very good movie, and it was critically acclaimed too. So
And she actually does a very good job in that movie too. There's not a lot of movies where you could accredit her acting skills, but that's one of them.
Yeah. Another movie, which is actually a favorite of my girlfriend's, is I Love You, Philip Morris with Jim Carrey and Obi-Wan Kenobi. Yeah, Ewan McGregor. Where Jim Carrey's character is a pretty fucking big con man. And he pretty much goes through the whole gay experience where he's secretly, he's in the closet, he's married, he has children, and then finally I think he gets in a car accident and he's just like, fuck this, and he like just starts being himself. And like even his ex-wife like accepts him that way and stuff, and he ends up going to prison because of his cons, and he falls in love with Ewan McGregor, who's also in prison. And it's fucking funny, it's good, it's based on a true story, so yeah, it's a really good movie. Please check it out. Another movie is Philadelphia. This is the last movie of our list. I'm sure there's a ton more, but these are the ones that stood out to us, which is Philadelphia with Tom Hanks and Denzel Washington. That is the one where Tom Hanks has AIDS, I think, right? Okay.
Yeah, it's like one of the first movies, actually, one of the first big movies to come out and address like homosexuality and HIV and all that stuff.
That and well, like as far as HIV go, I think the only one that like stood out to me was like Gia with like drug use and Angelina Jolie. Angelina Jolie. But that had nothing to do with sexuality. That was just more like HIV. But yeah, Philadelphia, still a groundbreaking movie. I'm pretty sure that one was critically acclaimed too. Most of these movies are actually pretty fucking well known. So
yeah, I think Tom Hanks won Best Actor for that one, or he was at least nominated. I don't know.
So the list today was 12 Years a Slave, Get Out, Django Unchained, American History X, The Birdcage, Brokeback Mountain, I Love You, Philip Morris, Philadelphia. So these are all great movies. They're all fucking pretty. They all have stood out pretty well. So yeah, please go check them out. Let us know what you thought about them. And that was today's Tipplers Take 2.
And cut.
Okay, everybody, that's a wrap.
Racism, homophobia, all the stuff that makes us different. But does it really? No. As you've seen here today, or at least listened to, we've addressed these topics and kind of realized that, while they do make us different, they don't really. They're kind of what binds us all together. So we just need to learn to accept each other for what is and what isn't about each other. And, color and sexuality don't really have any effect on one another, so why do we need to make it affect each other? Let's just get along, everybody. But hopefully you enjoyed this episode and our breakdown of these topics, and as well as our movie references. If you did enjoy this, please remember to subscribe to us on whatever listening platform you are listening on. We're pretty much on everything at this point. Mm-hmm. If you're new to the show, we upload every 2 weeks now instead of every week. So you might have heard in the previous episodes that we upload every week, but now it's every 2 weeks. So you'll be listening to new episodes every other Monday, not every single Monday. Just want to make sure that that's clarified for everybody that's a new listener. But you can also check us out on Facebook and Instagram for some additional content. We've kind of slacked off on that in the past week, but it's because we're adjusting to the new schedule. So we promise that we'll get back to, pushing out some more content for you guys to keep posted on things like that. Mm-hmm. Sean, do you want to go ahead and let everybody know where they can find some merch for our show?
Yeah, of course. They can find our merch at represent.com/store/Tipplers 2 Cents, where we have tons of tribute merch to specific episodes, inside jokes, stuff like that, as well as just represent merch, which is, just Tipplers 2 Cents, fucking all that good shit. And we also have a very specific shirt that I'm proud of, it's the Save Our Children shirt, and it's still very relevant to, I know you guys are probably sick of it. I don't give a fuck. Every time you purchase this shirt, the proceeds go to the Child Rescue Coalition. Please find that shirt, buy it, and that's the only shirt we really care about. And please go seek that one out. Outside of that, you can find us at Facebook.com/Tipplers 2 Cents. You can also find us at Instagram.com/Tipplers 2 Cents, or at Tipplers 2 Cents on Instagram. Chris, what else did you want to say? I'm sorry.
And you can also contact us with any additional info that we forgot to mention in our episodes, as well as questions that you have for us or anything like that, or maybe you just want to say what's up. You can message us at Tipplers 2 Cents podcast at gmail.com or message us on Facebook.
Yeah, sorry about
anyway,
that.
Guys. Yeah, anyway, that's going to go ahead and wrap up this episode. We'll see you in another 2 weeks. Again, the schedule's a little bit changed, so we don't know what that episode is going to be yet, but we'll let you know when we get there. Anyway, guys, we'll see you next time. Bye-bye.
Bye.